Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 81 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. Time flew by. A year had already passed in the world outside the training ground. There were far too many important matters that had occurred over this 1 year period. First was the chaos in the chaotic Demon Sea. The moment a deadlock of sorts emerged between the chaotic Demon Sea Alliance and the Yimo, news of the Yimos attacking the Demon region started to spread. Initially, some of the factions within the Demon region relied on their own strength in an attempt to finish off those Yimo. Unfortunately, it resulted in rivers of blood and land dotted with corpses wherever the Yimo passed. Any obstruction was completely eradicated by them. Blood seemed to have dyed the entire sky of the Demon region red. After all the factions in the northwest area of the Demon region were exterminated by Devil Prison, the Demon region finally began to shudder. Various large tribes and factions began to understand just how frightening of an opponent they were facing. Fear spread, and they began to learn that there was not a single faction in this world that could withstand Devil Prison. Even the overlord tribes within the Demon region were unable to do it. Fortunately, the ancient masters arrived just as Devil Prison was about to completely devastate the Demon region. After which, the 4 overlord tribes and 8 king tribes established an alliance within the Demon region with the help of the various ancient masters. The moment the Demon region alliance was formed, the countless factions within the Demon region came flooding towards it. If they did not unite at such a time, it was likely that only death would await them. The Demon region alliance was under the combined control of the 4 great overlord tribes. Given their reputation within the Demon region, no one was dissatisfied with this arrangement. However, the Demon region alliance did not have someone like Qingzhi, who possessed a perfect ability to command. Moreover, the 4 great overlord tribes were extremely proud and of equal strength. Hence, there were some disputes about the authority within the alliance. This resulted in the Demon region alliance suffering repeated defeats under the offensive of Devil Prison in the first month after it was formed. This situation undoubtedly caused all the ancient masters to become extremely furious. They directly summoned the tribe leaders of the 4 overlord tribes. After a series of scoldings and pressure, the 4 overlord tribes had no choice but to select someone who could truly command the power of the alliance. After several selections, this position eventually landed on the Celestial Demon Martin tribe. The tribe leader of the Celestial Demon Martin tribe placed this burden on Little Martin. Strangely, the various ancient masters did not have any objections towards this choice. Hence, the decision was made. Little Martin became the only alliance chief of the Demon region alliance. With the internal conflicts within the alliance settled, it was finally able to use all of its power. Little Martin also displayed extremely outstanding ability. Although he was inferior when compared to Qingzhi, who was able to swiftly enable the chaotic Demon Sea Alliance to block the Devil Prison's attacks, the Demon Region Alliance was at least able to oppose Devil Prison, and no longer suffered great losses like before. This face-off continued for around half a year or so. After which, several sudden incidents caused the Demon Region Alliance's strength to soar. One was the return and advancement to the reincarnation stage of the powerful individuals that had been selected to go to the Ancestral Citadel. The other was that the 5th overlord tribe that had suddenly emerged in the Demon region. This overlord tribe was called the Nine-Tailed tribe, and was one of the former overlord tribes. However, it had subsequently declined. No one had expected that this Nine-Tailed tribe, which had disappeared for many years, would actually appear again at such a time. Moreover, the strength they displayed when they reappeared shocked the entire Demon region. The tribe leader of the Nine-Tailed tribe seemed to be an extremely bewitching young lady who could pull anyone's heartstrings. Her strength was so frightening that even those peak reincarnation stage experts were somewhat fearful of her. This was because this young lady had not only advanced into the reincarnation stage, but had also experienced one reincarnation tribulation. Besides her, the overall strength of the Nine-Tailed tribe did not lose to the other overlord tribes. How could this not shock the other factions? After the Nine-Tailed tribe appeared out of nowhere, the Demon Region Alliance swiftly made contact with them. Ultimately, the current Demon Region Alliance devil-slaying commander, Lin Yang, personally went to greet them. It was not long before the Nine-Tailed tribe agreed to join the Demon Region Alliance. Moreover, they did not have any intentions of vying for power and had no objections to Little Martin being the commander. With the additions of this powerful force, the strength of the Demon Region Alliance undoubtedly soared greatly. It was finally able to gradually obtain an upper hand in the fight against the invading Yimo forces. The situation within the Demon Region also ended up in a stalemate as a result. However, it was obvious that the upper echelon of Devil Prison did not wish for peace in this world. Hence, they began to stretch their demonic hands towards the four great Xian regions after the situation within the Demon Region began to stabilize. With their two prior experiences, Devil Prison clearly acted a lot faster this time. Before anyone could react, half of the western region of the four great Xian regions had been massacred. News of this dreadful situation spread rapidly. Only after the quick arrival of the Ancient Masters was Devil Prison stopped. After which, the Ancient Masters swiftly ordered the four great Xian regions to form an alliance. This time, the alliance was swiftly established. This was largely credited to Darkness Palace. Sure enough, the position of Alliance Chief of the Four Xian Region Alliance was taken by Qingtan. Ever since she had emerged from the ancestral citadel, Qingtan had truly advanced into the reincarnation stage. With the aid of the Darkness Ancestral Symbol and the Darkness Saint side, she was able to fight even against those experts who had experienced two reincarnation tribulations. Moreover, with her status as the Master of Darkness Palace, there was no one within the four Xian regions who could contest her for the position of Alliance Chief. This allowed the four Xian regions more time to establish an alliance army. After a couple of months of bloody battle, they ended up abandoning the entire Western Xian region, but was able to successfully protect the other three regions. Hence, three great alliances were officially formed within this world. Each of them guarded the chaotic Demon Sea, Demon Region, and four Xian regions. Countless factions, sects, and races gathered together. In the face of the merciless pressure from Devil Prison, all of barriers had disappeared, and the various factions united. All of them clearly understood that if they did not eliminate Devil Prison, none of the countless lives in this world would have a good end. At that time, life would be misery, and everyone would fall under the control of the Yimo. They would become the most pitiful slaves. As the three great alliances shaped up, the situation was gradually controlled. The invasion of Devil Prison had also been stopped. Ying Huan and the other Ancient Masters, who had stabilized the situation, were finally freed to do other things. Eastern Xian Region. Ying Huan, the Flame Master, the Darkness Master and the others were floating in the sky outside of Dao Sect. Ying Huan glanced around her. After which, she said in a faint voice, "I plan to open the Heaven Eye." The coldness of her voice reached all the way into the bone. Air ripples as her voice spread, showing signs of solidifying into ice. She also felt this and involuntarily bunched her brows together. Soon after, she lowered her head. Her two arms were wrapped in slender white long-sleeved gloves. A faint but frighteningly cold chi emanated from within her gloves. The Darkness Master and the other four were stunned when they heard this. Soon after, they asked, "Haven't we already opened it once?" They had already opened the Heaven Eye a month ago in an attempt to find the upper echelons of Devil Prison. However, it had ended in failure. Those fellows were clearly well prepared. There is no need for all of you to do anything. Ying Huan shook her head. After which, she glanced at a mountain nearby where a tall and beautiful figure was standing. She wore a white dress, and had an extremely beautiful face. Her beauty and her distant yet calm aura was just like the hidden orchards in an empty valley. A sight that left one amazed. This figure was Qingzhi. Her lovely figure moved the moment she felt Ying Huan's eyes and she hurried over. "Who is she?" The Spatial Master and the rest were taken aback as they looked at Qingzhi. The latter did not appear exceptionally strong, but for some unknown reason, they could sense an extremely familiar fluctuation from her. Little junior sister's love rival. The Darkness Master appeared to know a little. She turned her head and softly said. The expression of the Spatial Master and the rest became strange after they heard these words. She has sensed the zenith, the extent that she had sensed it has even likely surpassed all of you. If I work with her, it should be possible to find those fellows from Devil Prison. Ying Huan said in a faint voice. What? The expressions of the Flame Master and the rest changed the moment these words sounded. Their eyes contained some shock as they looked at the aloof Qingzhi. There was actually someone else other than them in this world who was able to detect the zenith. Let's cooperate. Ying Huan approached Qingzhi. Her icy blue eyes looked towards the latter. However, that icy voice caused Qingzhi to be a little startled. You have changed a lot. The intuition of a woman was always frighteningly sharp. Ying Huan's lovely figure froze slightly. Does he know? Qingzhi asked again. Ying Huan shook her head. Qingzhi was silent. Let's do it. We need to find the Heaven Seat King before he fully recovers. Only then can we end this calamity. Ying Huan sighed softly and said. Qingzhi lightly nodded, and both women sat down in the air. Their eyes were shut and the energy fluctuations around them were withdrawn. Even the wind around them had come to a complete standstill. The duo sat in silence for around an hour. After which, they Flame Master and the others saw the sky gradually darken. Slivers of primal chaos light arrived from a mysterious place. Finally, it rapidly converged in the air above the two ladies. A strange pressure spread, causing the eyes of the Flame Master's group to narrow. This pressure originated from the mysterious zenith. The primal chaos light converged. In the end, it gradually turned into a primal chaos eye. This eye was around 10 feet in size. The colors of primal chaos within it reflected the scenes within the world. It was exceedingly mysterious. The eye of primal chaos slowly blinked after it appeared. It began to twist here and there as if probing this world. Many scenes flew across the eyeball. However, it did not stop. Meanwhile, the Flame Master and the others waited quietly. This silence continued for around half a day. Just when the Flame Master and the others were feeling disappointed that the probing was going to fail, a powerful light shot out from the primal chaos eye. The light gathered in the air and turned into a screen. The screen showed a land of darkness where a black river flowed. At this very moment, a black coffin silently floated in the middle of the river. The screen shifted until it was above the coffin. It broke past the demonic chi, and a figure appeared on the screen. The figure was wearing a black robe. There were gold lined the edges of the black robe. His appearance was extremely handsome. Both of his eyes were currently shut. Despite this, there was still an indescribable evil aura flowing on his face. Ying Huan's icy blue eyes turned cold in an instant, as her small glove-wrapped hand slowly clenched. Heaven Seat King, we have finally found you. Light was flowing across the screen and it completely displayed the human figure within the black coffin. Although both his eyes were shut, it was still possible to detect his aggressive and formidable nature. Heaven Seat King. The eyes of the Flame Master's group also sunk at this moment, before rich murderous intent flashed across their faces. They had finally found him. Ying Huan's pretty eyes were staring at that black-clothed man reflected in the screen. A moment later, her pupils hardened. This was because at this moment, the latter's tightly shut eyes trembled gently, before he slowly opened both his eyes. Bang! The moment he opened his eyes, an evilness which could cause one to fall into deprivation surged. If someone with a weak mind saw this, it was likely that he would end up losing his mind. Ying Huan and the rest were staring coldly at the awakened Heaven Seat King. Meanwhile, the latter was also staring back at them with an icy cold expression. It was as though the latter had detected that someone was spying on him from afar. Ha ha, is this the Ice Master? Seated within a coffin, the Heaven Seat King slowly got up. Then, he looked at the screen before he gave a faint smile. With a lazy expression on his face, he said, "You guys are quite skilled. It turns out that you guys are actually able to spy on me in this fashion." No one replied. This was because he could not hear their replies even if they did. Though they were able to use the Heaven Eye to spy on the Heaven Seat King, it did not allow both parties to communicate. At this moment, the Heaven Seat King was merely speaking to the void. However, he knew that his words were definitely heard by Ying Huan's group. Since you guys know where I am, I shall wait for all of you to come. Once you guys arrive, I believe that we can settle our grudge once and for all. The Heaven Seat King laughed before he said. However, an evil and cruel smile appeared on the corner of the Heaven Seat King's lips. He turned to face the screen and slowly clenched his hand, before a strange glint flashed across his eyes. This time around, you guys will definitely lose. The screen trembled gently before the image began to turn blurry. Following which, the Heaven Seat King's picture also became increasingly blurry. Finally, the screen shook before it disappeared completely. Immediately, the Eye of Primal Chaos, which was hovering in the sky, also vanished. Ying Huan stood up. Her pretty eyes were filled with iciness as she said, "It seems like the Heaven Seat King should have made a complete recovery. What should we do?" The Flame Master asked in a deep voice. If the Heaven Seat King made a complete recovery, the fighting strength of the Devil Prison would also soar to its peak. This was clearly bad news for them. They should be in the Western Xian region. That is where their headquarters is located. Ying Huan said. Inform the three great alliances. Ask them to end the stalemate with the Yimo as soon as possible. After which, send all their forces to the Western Xian region. This time around, we must completely exterminate every one of them. There was an extremely sharp glow flowing within Ying Huan's pretty eyes. These Yimo were far too difficult to deal with. Therefore, if they only forced these creatures to go into hiding like they did before, they would not have completely resolved this problem. Thankfully, this time around, they were in an advantageous position. This was because they had the home ground advantage. Moreover, all the Yimo here were trapped in this plane. Therefore, without any reinforcements, these Yimo would eventually fail. With a grave expression on their faces, the Flame Masters group nodded their heads. It seems like a great world war was indeed about to erupt once again. However, this time around, there was no way they would let these guys off. Let's prepare the offerings. Once the three great alliance armies are here, we will summon Big Senior Sister. Ying Huan pondered for a moment before she said. Are we going to forcefully summon the Life-Death Master? The Flame Masters group looked at Ying Huan before they asked. I am able to detect a faint ripple from Big Senior Sister. She should be close to making a complete recovery. Therefore, it shouldn't be a problem even if we summon her. Ying Huan said. The Flame Masters group nodded slowly. Then, they hesitated for a moment before they said, however, I'm afraid that you will have to use your full strength if you wish to fight with the Heaven Seat King. Ying Huan finally descended into silence. Meanwhile, she tightly clenched her small hand, which was hidden under a long snow-white glove. After which, she lifted her head before she looked at the distant chaotic demon sea. A long while later, she finally said, I know. Don't worry. Leave the Heaven Seat King to me. This time around, he will not have a chance to escape. Coincidentally, he was not around now. Therefore, she could make use of this opportunity to deal with these matters on her own. Otherwise, could she bear to make such a decision if he was here? The Flame Masters group exchanged glances with each other. Finally, they sighed and nodded. Once Ying Huan's powers were completely awakened, she might return to how she was in the past. Let's make the necessary preparations. Ying Huan looked a little lethargic as she waved her hand and said. Since the Flame Master and the rest knew how she felt at this moment, they chose not to speak up anymore. Instead, their bodies moved before they went to deliver the message to the three great alliances. After they left, Ying Huan involuntarily bit her red lips. Her eyes, which were looking towards the chaotic demon sea, refused to budge. Why don't you wait for him to come out from his seclusion? There is still some time left. Qingzhi used her bright clear eyes to look at Ying Huan before she asked. I'm afraid that at that time, I can't bear to make such a decision. Ying Huan smiled and said, there is no way I can remain as cold as ice in front of him. Moreover, someone has to shoulder this burden. Though he is extremely outstanding, he is still lacking. This is too heavy of a burden. If he was the one carrying it, my heart would definitely ache. Therefore, I would rather do it myself. Ling Qingzhi stared at Ying Huan and said, however, I'm afraid that there is no way he would accept this. By acting in this manner, isn't it the same as running away? However, in this world, it's not like you always have a choice. Ying Huan said calmly. Moreover, only a fool like him would persevere on stubbornly. He always believes that one day, he would be able to shoulder this burden. The smile on the corner of Ying Huan's lips became bitter and helpless. However, how is this possible? Ling Qingzhi stopped speaking. However, Ying Huan walked towards her before she smiled and said, if anything unexpected happens in the future, please take good care of him. Ling Qingzhi stared at the girl in front of her, who had a beautiful face with a slight hint of iciness, before she softly replied, based on what you said, I believe that you will undergo a transformation after your power awakens. However, trust me, even at that time, when you see him, something in you will change. There are feelings that cannot be frozen through pure strength. Ying Huan was startled. Then, she muttered to herself, I also hope that it will turn out like this. However, at that time, even I will detest how I have become. Therefore, will you still like me? Above the darkness river, the man in the coffin slowly stood up. Then, he shook his head gently before he dispelled the giddy sensation in his mind. After which, he lifted his head and looked at the void around him, which was spying on him previously, before he gave a faint smile, Ice Master her. It seems like enemies tend to meet frequently. Unexpectedly, you have successfully reincarnated. Bang! A loud explosion suddenly occurred within the darkness river. After which, 100,000 feet large black figure walked over. When he swung his 8 huge devil arms, even the space itself became greatly distorted. Heaven Seat King, have you finally made a complete recovery? The buzzing voice of the cosmic evil devil king reverberated across the darkness river, causing huge waves to be formed. Following which, many black water pillars rose from around the river. After which, 8 figures surfaced on these water pillars. Upon closer inspection, they were the 3rd Seat King and the upper echelon of the devil prison. It seems like they have discovered where we are. A skinny young man standing on the rightmost water pillar said. He looked like a young and handsome man, and he even looked a little meek. However, there was a frightening and sinister emotion flowing within his black eyes. That's right. We have underestimated the Ice Master. Initially, we thought that we had a little more time. The Heaven Seat King laughed faintly. What should we do now? Should we start a war now? The 3rd Seat King asked. Relax, they will definitely deal with the Yimo outside first. Send my orders and instruct them to launch an all-out attack. As long as the troops from the 3 Great Alliance armies have not gathered, it is likely that the Ice Masters group will not dare to come by themselves. The Heaven Seat King said casually. The 3 Great Alliances are well equipped. With our forces alone, I am afraid that we cannot stop them. The 3rd Seat King frowned and said. Let them all die. The Heaven Seat King smiled and said. He revealed his set of dense white teeth before he said, it's their honor to do so. Although he was smiling, there was no emotion within his eyes. In fact, it seemed as though abandoning those Yimo warriors had hardly affected his emotions. This time around, we will not allow anyone to stop us. This plane will ultimately come under the control of our Yimo tribe. The Heaven Seat King parted his lips and laughed. His laughter contained endless madness as he said, I will help the Emperor to finish what he failed to do back then. Ice Master, just you wait. This time around, we will not fail. I really look forward to seeing all your despairing faces. Ha ha. A somewhat low and deep laughter spread far into the darkness. The river was flowing. Meanwhile, within the darkness, numerous evil eyes opened up. While the outside world erupted into an uproar because of the Yimo, the training ground, which was isolated from the flow of time, continued to remain silent. Meanwhile, this silence was also filled with extreme loneliness. The figure seated at the top of the altar had been doing so for a decade. During these 10 years, his clothes had gradually become tattered due to the erosion from time. In fact, only his looks remained unchanged. However, the determination on his face seemed to have become increasingly distinct. There was not the least amount of yuan power or mental energy being emitted from within his body. In fact, he looked exactly like an ordinary person. He looked so weak that no one would notice him. In fact, only those with extremely sharp senses could vaguely detect the sharpness and might brewing beneath his ordinary appearance. This silence continued for a long period of time. This figure, who had been sitting quietly for 10 years, suddenly trembled. Immediately, the clothes on his body turned into dust, before they scattered downwards. After his clothes turned into dust, his eyes, which had been shut tightly for 10 years, finally began to open at this moment. His eyes were as dark as the night sky and they gave off no fluctuations. However, despite his peaceful and gentle exterior, the entire void began to tremble after they were being stared at by his eyes. His eyes were just like those belonging to a god, and they frightened even the world itself. Seated at the top of an altar, Lin Dong opened his eyes. Meanwhile, his dark black eyes seemed to encompass the entire world. They looked so mysterious that one would be involuntarily intoxicated within them. After Lin Dong awoke from his long training session, he was lost for a moment. Soon after, his eyes began to regain their usual clarity. Then, he lowered his head and looked at his long hands, before a faint smile appeared on the corner of his lips. "Is this the Divine Palace Master level?" Lin Dong muttered to himself. At this moment, he sensed that he had advanced to a relatively frightening level. This was a level that he had never came into contact with in the past. In fact, he felt that right now, if he met the 7th Seat King from the Devil Prison again, he could easily injure the latter with the flip of his palm. Moreover, there was nothing to fear even if he met a Seat King, who was equivalent to an expert who had passed 3 reincarnation tribulations. This was the strength afforded by his divine palace. Lin Dong shut his eyes before a thought passed through his mind. After which, he saw that between his brows, there was a divine palace which was now giving off 100,000 feet large divine light rays. Meanwhile, there was an endless amount of mental energy whistling and dancing within his divine palace. In fact, his mental energy now gave off a faint primal chaos light. This was the change that occurred after they merged with that mysterious zenith. In fact, it was this small change that caused his mental energy to metamorphosize. Opening his eyes, Lin Dong slowly stood up. After which, light glimmered on his body before they transformed into a set of black clothes. Following which, he clenched his hand. Although in the last 10 years, he had spent most of his time trying to form a divine palace, the yuan power within his body had also improved significantly. However, after reaching his level, he no longer had to think about making a breakthrough. Instead, all he cared about was how to survive the frightening reincarnation tribulation. 10 years. 1 year should have passed in the outside world. I wonder what is going on outside. Lin Dong muttered to himself, before he left his cultivation state. After which, he began to worry secretly in his heart. After all, even before he entered his seclusion, the outside world was in quite a bad state. Therefore, he wondered what the situation was like now. I should leave first. With this thought in mind, Lin Dong ceased hesitating. He turned around and bowed towards the old and damaged futon on the altar. This was because a big reason why he could successfully form his divine palace was because he had received a divine hint. Otherwise, he would have never imagined that forming a divine palace actually required that mysterious zenith strength. Thankfully, he had learnt the zenith sensing art from Qingzhi. Otherwise, he might have never been able to make this step in his lifetime. Of course, advancing to the divine palace master level not only required help from that mysterious force. Over the years, whereby he was trying to form a divine palace, despite Lin Dong's cautious nature, he still made mistakes on a couple of occasions and they nearly caused his divine palace to collapse. Thankfully, he was able to salvage the situation. Otherwise, it was likely that he would still end up in failure. Buzz buzz. While Lin Dong bowed towards that futon actually emitted a faint buzzing sound. Following which, a mysterious light slowly rose from it. Sizzle. Light gathered on that futon. Faintly, they seemed to form a small mysterious formation. When Lin Dong saw that light formation, he was promptly startled. This was because that light formation was exactly the same as the ancient universe formation in his body. The ancient universe formation in Lin Dong's body also shook the moment this light formation appeared. After which, it lost control and rushed out from within Lin Dong's body, before it directly merged with that light formation. The two of them merged. Soon after, the formation became even more obscure and mysterious. Meanwhile, the ancient fluctuation that it gave off became even more intense. Is this the formation spirit of the ancient universe formation? Lin Dong looked at the merged ancient universe formation, before a look of comprehension flashed across his face. Ever since he obtained the ancient universe formation, he always felt that something was missing. From the members of the Devil Prison, he learned that the ancient universe formation was created by the symbol ancestor. In fact, numerous Yimo were killed by it during the ancient times. However, he did not know that the ancient universe formation in his hand was actually imperfect. The scene in front of him clearly showed Lin Dong that the thing missing from his ancient universe formation was actually hidden within this old and damaged futon all along. The light formation began to shrink. After which, all the light returned to the futon. Subsequently, the old and damaged futon began to melt. Finally, flames rose before an exceptional cluster of light slowly rose from it. This unusual cluster of light was a palm-sized black and white stone plate. Meanwhile, that stone plate gave off an ancient and desolate sensation, and there were countless mysterious lines carved on it. Lin Dong extended his hand, before that black and white stone plate landed in his palm. When it first entered his palm, it felt icy cold. Then, Lin Dong observed it curiously. Following which, a thought passed through his mind before that black and white stone plate turned into an unusual light and tunneled into his body. Right now, the ancient universe formation, which was created by the symbol ancestor, was finally complete. After completing his ancient universe formation, joy involuntarily flashed across Lin Dong's eyes. After all, he never expected to have a chance encounter in a place like this. Thank you, symbol ancestor. Lin Dong cupped his hands together towards the void and voiced his thanks. Although the symbol ancestor was no longer here, it did not stop him from expressing his gratitude. After voicing his thanks, Lin Dong did not continue to linger in this place. A thought passed through his mind before a glowing halo slowly formed in the void in front of the altar. After which, without hesitation, he stepped into the glowing halo before he disappeared gradually. This empty space, which could distort time, finally became silent once again after Lin Dong disappeared. In fact, there was only a weak light flashing on that old and damaged futon, which was seated at the top of the altar. It looked as though it was sending Lin Dong off. Flame Divine Hall. Currently, this place was the headquarters of the Chaotic Demon Sea Alliance, and there were countless figures shuttling in the sky. This place appeared extremely lively, and it was several times more lively compared to 1 year ago. Of course, the most eye-catching place in this region was undoubtedly the ancestral citadel, standing in the sky. In fact, there were countless figures standing right at its entrance. Meanwhile, frightening auras spread from within their bodies. It turns out that they were all ultimate experts who had stepped into the samsara stage. Down below, there were countless people staring enviously at these experts, who were finally able to enter the ancestral citadel after surviving a harsh selection process. After all, over the past year, many samsara stage experts were able to make a breakthrough after they entered that citadel, and advanced to the highly respected reincarnation stage. This was also why their alliance was growing increasingly powerful, and they were now able to push the Yimo back. At this moment, at the deepest part of the ancestral citadel, the ancient stone statue within the stone square suddenly emitted a bright light. After which, a black-cloaked skinny figure slowly walked out from within. Lin Dong exited the stone statue before he surveyed the familiar scene in front of him. After 10 years of bitter training, a familiar glow finally surged within his lonely-looking black eyes. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath. Promptly, he gave a gentle smile before he walked out. Along the way, he would occasionally spot some experts who were training bitterly. These individuals were all powerful practitioners. However, when they saw Lin Dong, they were all stunned. In fact, all of them only recovered their senses after Lin Dong walked past them. Is that Elder Lindong? Within the Chaotic Demon Sea Alliance, Lindong held the position of Elder and he had the same rank as Ying Huan and the rest. This was naturally a highly respected position, and it's no wonder the members of the Alliance were all stunned when they saw him. It turns out Elder Lindong was also training within the Ancestral Citadel. Countless private conversations sounded. After which, all of them were in shock. When Lindong brushed past them previously, none of them could detect any yuan power or mental energy fluctuation from the latter. This was clearly not because Lindong had lost all his strength. In that case, it could only mean that Lindong had currently reached a level far beyond their imagination. Lindong ignored the commotion behind as he headed directly towards the front door of the Ancestral Citadel. He was just about to leave when he was stopped by a person. "Brother, have you completed your training? In that case, please come and register. Which alliance do you belong to?" Lindong was bewildered as he stared at that middle-aged man, who was interrogating him with a jade plate in his hand. After which, he scratched his head. He was just about to speak when someone from the side suddenly pulled that man aside. Meanwhile, that other person, who originally had a stern expression on his face, suddenly smiled before he said, "Elder Lindong, he is a newcomer and does not recognize your honorable self. If he has offended you in any way, please forgive him." Elder Lindong? When he heard this name, the expression on the face of that man, who was interrogating Lindong previously, changed immediately. After which, he stared at Lindong with wild joy on his face. "What is going on?" Lindong felt neither able to laugh nor cry, as he asked. "Ha, ever since the ancient masters opened the Ancestral Citadel a year ago, they allowed many Samsara stage experts to enter and train. At the same time, it also produced a large number of experts for our three great alliances." The burly-looking man replied respectfully. "Three great alliances?" Lindong was startled. When the burly man saw Lindong's reaction, he was not surprised. After all, these events all took place after Lindong went into a seclusion. Therefore, he quickly explained the events that occurred in the last year. Even the Demon region and the four Xian regions have been affected. When he heard this, Lindong was bewildered. Unexpectedly, the situation had actually developed like this. It seems like the Devil Prison was truly intending on starting the Second World War. The ancient masters sent a message some time ago, and ordered the three great alliances to eliminate the Devil Prison army as soon as possible. After which, we are to gather all our forces together and attack the Western Xian region in order to completely eliminate the Devil Prison. Currently, our Chaotic Demon Sea Alliance is engaging in a decisive battle with the Devil Prison army under the leadership of Alliance Chief Xin Lian. However, the fight seems to be at a stalemate. The burly man said. Lindong nodded. However, he did not ask where the battle was taking place. Instead, with just a single thought, he had already detected the brutal and overwhelming auras in the distance. "I will head over there," Lindong said. "Once Elder Lindong makes a move, the Devil Prison army will collapse instantly." The burly man rejoiced upon hearing this. Lindong smiled, before he waved his hand. Following which, under the shocked eyes of the two burly-looking men, his body slowly became illusory before he vanished a moment later. When the two burly men saw Lindong's unbelievable methods, rich shock and joy surged within their eyes. Chaotic Demon Sea, Northern Sea region. Over the last year, this vast sea region was basically the front line of the war between the Devil Prison and the Chaotic Demon Sea Alliance. Both parties had fought dozens of battles in this region, and every battle was an earth-shaking one. In fact, the entire ocean was dyed blood red, while the sky was filled with demonic aura. Currently, this sea region was still the bloodiest place across the entire Chaotic Demon Sea. This was because both parties were engaged in a decisive battle in this region. In order for the Chaotic Demon Sea Alliance to free up its forces and assist the two other great alliances, they had to end the war in the Chaotic Demon Sea as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the Devil Prison had issued the harshest order to the Yimo in this region, and they were to stop the Chaotic Demon Sea Alliance at any cost. Hence, the most intense and fearsome battle over the last year erupted once again. Bang bang. Demonic aura surged in all directions while countless formidable yuan power blew apart. At a cursory glance, one could see numerous glowing figures charging towards the Devil Prison army together with a fearsome and monstrous killing intent. Two massive torrents collided against each other, before battle cries echoed across the sky. On the ocean, huge waves that were hundreds of thousands of feet in size rose and fell. However, the loud rumbling noises could not cover the bloodthirsty battle cries. Tang Xinlian was standing in the sky behind the endless sea of Alliance army troops. Currently, she was wearing a tight red soft armor which showcased her well-proportioned body and highlighted her alluring curves. As of now, her beautiful face was focused intently on this battlefield. Her clear and cold cries were wrapped with yuan power, before they were continuously sent into the distance, commanding the entire Alliance army in the process. Alliance Chief, it seems like the Yimo have gone crazy and they are far too persistent. Standing beside Tang Xinlian, an old man said with a grave expression on his face. A cold glint flashed across Tang Xinlian's eyes before she said, "Send an absolute order. This time around, we must finish off the Devil Prison army in the chaotic Demon Sea. The headquarters of the Devil Prison has already been revealed. Therefore, the reason why the Yimo armies are fighting to their death is likely because they had received an order from their headquarters. Moreover, it is clear that the Devil Prison is planning to sacrifice these troops in order to stall our Alliance army. Since they are willing to pay such a hefty price, the Devil Prison must be using this opportunity to make certain preparations. Therefore, we must act with haste." When he heard her words, that old man felt his heart shudder before he quickly acknowledged. He was also a top expert within the chaotic Demon Sea and in fact, in terms of seniority, he was ranked even higher than Mo Luo. However, over the last year, ever since Tang Xinlian took control of the chaotic Demon Sea Alliance, the situation had slowly turned for the better. Therefore, her abilities were now widely acknowledged and no one in the entire chaotic Demon Sea disobeyed her orders. Many orders swiftly spread throughout the Alliance army. Following which, a scarlet-red expression appeared in the eyes of countless experts. After all, far too many people from their side were killed by the Devil Prison over the last year, and this grudge could never be buried. Since it could never be buried, they would completely exterminate the Yimo instead. Charge! An earth-shaking roar resounded, before countless experts charged forward like a torrent. Their majestic yuan power completely shattered all the Yimo at the front. The entire place turned scarlet. With a cold expression on her pretty face, Tang Xinlian stared at the battlefield. Soon after, she turned her attention towards the sky. That was the place where the elites from both sides were fighting at. Although there was only a small number of people involved, the outcome of that fight would have an extremely huge impact on the overall battle. The battleground in the sky consisted only of experts who had stepped into the reincarnation stage. Meanwhile, their opponents were all creatures that were ranked at or above the Yimo kings. In fact, there were many true kings as well. Fortunately, these troublesome fellows were all stopped by the top experts from the Alliance. I wonder if Elder Qingzhi is able to hold on. Tang Xinlian clenched her jade-like hands before she looked at the highest part of this battlefield. Currently, frightening ripples were being emitted from that spot. Meanwhile, a green-cloaked figure was present within the clouds. Standing opposite him was a 10,000 feet large giant Yimo. This Yimo looked extremely fearsome and there were a dozen over-large eyes on its body. Meanwhile, fearsome and brutal fluctuations radiated from within its body. This gruesome Yimo was formed from the merger of 10 true kings from the Devil Prison. After the merger, the newly created Yimo was extremely frightening. In fact, it was comparable to a peak expert who had passed 2 reincarnation tribulations. As such, it was likely that within the chaotic Demon Sea Alliance, only Qingzhi could stop a creature like that. Clearly, the Yimo army was using everything they had in order to stop the chaotic Demon Sea Alliance army from destroying them. Roar? Currently, Qingzhi had an extremely solemn expression on his face. Following which, green light swept out from within his body in all directions, before his body actually began to swell wildly. In a short period of time, his clothes were all in tatters. Meanwhile, Qingzhi has transformed into a 10,000 feet large dragon-like human. Green scales covered his entire body, while a cold light glimmered on them. Moreover, the green veins on his dragon arms were wiggling like tiny dragons, while tens of thousands of green dragon-like tattoos circled around his body as they bellowed. The green heaven-materialized dragon skill was created by Qingzhi. Therefore, when he executed this martial arts, its strength would blow anyone's mind. Roar! Qingzhi was hovering in the sky. The space itself was shattered as he transformed into a green ray of light and shot towards the ferocious giant devil. His dragon fist whistled before tens of thousands of dragon-like tattoos surged. After which, they landed on that huge devil's body with lightning-like speed. Bang bang bang. Up against Qingzhi's fearsome attacks, that huge devil roared towards the sky, before it swung its sharp devil claws ruthlessly. In fact, it showed no signs of retreating as it chose to clash head-on with Qingzhi instead. Two massive creatures were brawling in the sky. They did not use any special techniques. Instead, they relied on their frightening strength, which could even cause the space itself to explode. The low and deep sound of fist meeting fist even drowned the battle cries from all over the place. Kai! Qingzhi's sharp dragon claw ruthlessly swiped the enormous devil's body. Promptly, a piece of its flesh, that was dripping with black blood, was forcefully ripped off. The moment its flesh was ripped off, that huge devil released a loud roar before it landed a punch on Qingzhi's body. The force behind that punch shattered the green dragon scales on Qingzhi's body and sent the latter flying by over 10,000 feet. Puff! Traces of blood climbed into Qingzhi's dragon eyes. His back shook, before a pair of huge green dragon wings, which was tens of thousands of feet in size, was extended. Then, he flapped his dragon wings before he collided with that huge devil once again. Tang Xinlian was observing the frightening fight in the sky. Suddenly, her pretty eyes hardened before she cried out in a cold voice, "Third unit, attack!" Right after she spoke, monstrous killing intent suddenly erupted from a distance far behind the Yimo army. After which, numerous practitioners charged towards them in all directions like sharp blades, and they actually split the Yimo army into two. This sudden reinforcement also boosted the morale of the Alliance army. After which, they gradually gained the upper hand. Ayo! At this moment, the Yimo army also realized that something was amiss. All of a sudden, an earth-shaking roar sounded. Meanwhile, that roar was filled with endless violence and madness. That roar reverberated across the place. After which, the bodies of the elite Yimo in the sky suddenly blew apart. Following which, they transformed into black rays of light before they shot into the huge devil body high in the sky, which was currently engaging in a fearsome brawl with Qingzhi. Roar! After that huge devil suddenly received a frightening influx of energy, its massive 100,000 feet large body actually began to swell once again. In fact, large bloody scars appeared on the surface of its body. Clearly, it was beginning to buckle under the strain. Bang! The humongous devil released a stern roar before it threw a punch forward. That punch penetrated through the air before it ruthlessly landed on Qingzhi's body, sending the latter flying. Meanwhile, the dragon scales on Qingzhi's body were blasted apart while fresh blood flowed continuously. Evidently, the Yimo army had gone crazy. This humongous devil, which was formed from the merger of numerous Yimo, was likely equivalent to a peak expert who had passed 3 reincarnation tribulations. However, this was also its limit. If they continued to add more Yimo, it was likely that this humongous devil would self-destruct because it was unable to handle the strain. Moreover, even if these Yimo managed to win the fight, there was no way they could survive. In essence, they were sacrificing their lives to stall the Alliance army. This episode ends here.